Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us again for the COVID number 5 Zoom series and the challenge that we're facing today. I'm going to bypass all the housekeeping stuff because I think we know this by heart. But if you are first time coming, we want to welcome you here. This is a really exciting place to be with all the different ideas and suggestions and solutions people have been having, as well as the challenges. Just so you know, this call will be 60 minutes long and will be posted on Monday on the COVID virus chat page, the web page. So you can access all the recordings there. I want you to know that on this call we have you all muted. If you have a question or you want to post something, you can raise your hand, or you can post questions in the chat area. We typically use the raise hand feature for responding to any questions that are asked. You all know Mike D'Angelo and Steve Young. Steve will be taking the questions on the chat. Mike will be hosting the call. We have a couple other people on here, AICC staff and Ralph Young. Scott Ellis is probably on. I haven't seen him yet. And David Ghosh, our lawyer. And now I'm just going to go right in and read the antitrust statement. Goodness, my apologies. My page is gone. Well,
know it by heart.
Go ahead, Steve. I don't know where my page went. Go ahead, Steve.
AICC is an international trade association representing a majority of the independent corrugated manufacturers and suppliers in North America. Therefore, we abide by the antitrust laws of the United States, Canada, and we're applicable in Mexico as well.
Thank you. And Mike, we now turn it over to you.
Okay, thank you, Taryn. Good afternoon, everybody. We hope this 1-hour webinar or Zoom conference finds you all well and busy and feeling more in control of the situation as the weeks have evolved. I've noticed that 1 month ago today, we made our first AICC COVID page posting. And so there's now about 20 updates that we've given you since that day, because we do it on weekdays, with hopefully information that's been helpful and useful to you. I just want to summarize a couple of things. We've kind of gotten to the point now on the state-by-state updates where we're really just reporting on extensions of stay-at-home restrictions and the like. But as we all know, because it's been dominating the news, certainly in the last day or so, while states are extending stay-at-home restrictions and business restrictions that go along with them, as the case may be, there is talk of opening things up in the economy. And actually, 3 groups of states, one in the West, one in the Midwest, and one in the Northeast, have put together what are being now referred to as economic restart councils. So we're going to try and at least monitor the information that's coming out of the economic restart councils. There does seem to be some common footprint about what will need to be in place as a basis for openings to begin to occur, but hopefully it's in the not too distant future. On the webpage this week, we did a couple of informations, one of which I think is very important. I want to share with everyone in case you didn't see it. And this was an update on enforcement guidance from OSHA relative to the recording of occupational illnesses as they relate to COVID-19. And essentially, with the exception of the healthcare industry and emergency response organizations, and I'm reading this from the actual OSHA language, OSHA will not enforce Rule 29 CFR Part 1904, which requires employers to make the same work-relatedness determinations. That is to say, employers will not have to make work-related determinations relative to COVID-19, with 2 exceptions. That there is objective evidence that a COVID-19 case may be work-related. They give an example: a number of cases developing among workers who work closely together without an alternative explanation. Think of the meatpacking plant up in South Dakota. If there's a hot spot, you might have to make an OSHA designation. In the other instance, it was when evidence was reasonably available to the employer. That would be, in the example they give, an employee is identified to you that they have been in contact with someone, and you say, come on into work anyway, I'm sure it's no big deal. And then someone gets sick. That might be an OSHA recordable incident. Aside of those two exceptions, OSHA is not going to consider COVID-19 to be work-related because it is a community spread disease. So if you're not familiar with that language, please go to the OSHA website. We've got a link on the quick links portion of our website so that you don't have to go scrolling back through whichever day we actually posted that on, which I think was Monday, as a matter of fact. The other big item this week was, of course, the Paycheck Protection Program has run out of money as of yesterday, and there are still a lot of applications left to be processed. Today's update, AICC has linked an NAM generated email that if you fill it in with your information, it will go right to your congressional representative, essentially asking them to add more money into that program. In the meantime, if you do need sources of funds, the Small Business Administration has another program, the Economic Injury Disaster Loan, EIDL. It is a completely different program from the PPP and does not have the same or any forgiveness mechanism like the PPP does, but it can be a source of funds, and SBA has a couple of other funding opportunities that may be of use for you or may not. And Virginia's, I'm looking at what Virginia's putting up in the sidebar. So she's got a link to the that NAM mail to your congressperson. If you want to take advantage of that, if you feel you should, we would encourage you to do so. That's kind of what I have as the opener. We have no other programming notes like we've had in the past. We've got no particular speakers on any particular topic. I don't know, Steve, if anybody's been coming through with any questions or not.
Yeah, Mike,
I'm sorry.
There have been several questions. First one came in is, has anyone applied for the Paycheck Protection Program, and what was your success or failure? So there have been some answers put here, but we'd love to have anybody comment on that.
If you'd like to comment, please raise your hand. You can do that by clicking on the chat button at the bottom of your screen, and the participants list will open it up, and it'll have a raise and lower hand option at the bottom. Anybody want to talk? John Pettingill.
John, I'm gonna, let's call on you because you actually responded to one of those questions.
Hold on, I gotta get him.
Well, unmute you.
He's not coming. Oh, there we go. Okay.
There we go.
All right. Oops.
You lost it.
I lost. Not the first time I've been lost.
There he is. There you go, John.
Hey, John.
Okay. Yeah, we've had an exciting time. We initially right away filed for our PPP with our bank, which is BOA. It seems like the larger banks have had a lot of problem getting approvals, and at the last minute we were able to switch over to a smaller bank, and immediately within a couple hours we got our SBA number, and this morning we got funded. And that's all, I've been working on this almost 3 days intensively, trying to figure out which way to go and how to get this accomplished, even though we had put all our stuff in back on April the 6th or whenever it was. And fortunately for us, we had a pretty aggressive community bank here that was able to put it together for us practically at the last minute. I mean, we got our SBA number day before yesterday, but as you know, funds ran out yesterday. So it's been exciting, but I do have the money in the account now.
What about Eli Brown? Can you comment on the process and how it went for you? Eli? I've unmuted you. No? Anybody else? Okay, Steve?
As we're now into this for more than 4 weeks, has anybody had to deal with one or more employees testing positive for COVID-19?
Hey,
If so,
Steve, before we answer that question, there's a couple answers that I have hands raised now.
okay,
So
go ahead.
Jean Marino, I'm unmuting you. It's not letting me unmute you.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
So this is by no means paid expertise, but the SBA basically receives applications from the banks and approves those applications. The SBA is effectively blessing the ability of the bank to lend you money. So the money was allotted to each institution from the SBA, and if you have an approval number, that bank the approval number comes from the SBA. That bank will then fund that PPP financing. Okay, so just for some clarity's sake, this is not money coming from the Federal Reserve that is being distributed by the SBA. This is effectively a paper trail from the bank to the SBA. The SBA then authorizes that paperwork as correct and assigns a number of approval, and then it's funded at the institutional level. Personal opinion, there's a significant amount of paperwork that will go along with the forgiveness of this loan. So for those of you that are trying to decipher a lot of the language that's in there, and again, I'm no paid expert. You could seek counsel from your CPA, but to me, the easiest scenario seems to be establishing a separate new bank account that the PPP funds go into, and then you are effectively transferring money to your payroll account or your operating account out of that newly established account. So you have a reconcilable, traceable series of transactions that take place that will tie out to the backup paperwork that you must maintain. Okay, so in other words, if the payroll approval at the funding level consists of overtime, regular time, vacation pay, sick pay, and then the employee portion of benefits and state and local taxes, there is a federal tax and a Social Security difference in your payroll register, and that difference for federal taxes and Social Security taxes are not covered under this funding. And so if you can keep your reconcilable trace and you can maintain that paperwork, let's say in a simple binder, the math will tie out, and then you basically can have all of this paperwork set up and reconcilable. I would do the same thing with your rent payments, your utility payments. A lot of the payroll companies will have this in place, but this is just simply a make your life easy at the end of this thing when it comes to forgiveness on this loan, to avoid any complications.
Thank you, Jean. We have another response from Eric Elgin. Eric, I'm unmuting you.
Yeah, hi everyone. I signed up for the PPP, and on the 14th of April was when we submitted our paperwork, and it was funded by the 14th. For me, the process went really, really smooth. The banks were just working like night and day. They got it done quickly. So to speak to a little bit about what Gene was saying on the forgiveness part, the banks are going to be the ones that determine it, whether it's forgivable or not, but they're going to be held accountable by the government. So it's going to be in the government's interest to really make sure that the banks, make sure that people account for this properly. I think that's going to be the interesting part. But the process for us was really, really smooth. Getting it. It's pretty easy.
Thank you, Eric.
Yep.
Okay, Steve, back to you.
Just another comment on that. I see Martha Haddon has responded here. If you work with a payroll company like Paychecks, they're able to set up the paperwork to document this too. And I don't want to put Martha on the spot, but I don't know if she has any additional comments.
I'll unmute you, Martha. Martha?
Hey, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, I would say if you made it through the process to get the approval through your bank, that you're already there with your documentation. If you're able to get it through smoothly, quickly, that you're doing the right thing for your documentation. Because I think a lot of the companies that did not make it quickly was, from what I'm hearing from our banker, a lot of their people that didn't get it, it was due to just a lot of back and forth with, you got to dot this I, you got to cross this T. So we had our application go in on the 6th, and we were funded the 14th. So, but we got our approval 2 days after, but then it took about 4 days to actually see it in our account. But we work with Paychecks, and it's pretty seamless. They generate a lot of great reports and provide a lot of documentation.
Thank you, Martha.
I can support what Martha said in that AICC works with a third-party paycheck supplier, and they generated an entire report on our entire payroll situation, salary, benefits, the whole 9 yards, in a format that I guess is acceptable, because it's we didn't ask them to prepare the document; they just did, and they made us aware of it. So I'm sure they're all performing that way, or I hope they are.
Thank you, Steve.
Just a couple more comments regarding PPP. This is from S. Frank to everyone. Supposedly the Treasury Department is issuing forgiveness guidelines next week. So maybe more on that to come next week. Another question that's been up here is on personal protective equipment, namely face masks. Does anybody have an inexpensive source? That was from Stu Finkel. I don't know if Stu, you have any comments on that?
Hold on. I'll unmute you, Stu. Stuart?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yep.
I don't really have many comments about it. We're just looking for different sources. The best we found is 75 cents recently, coming in a couple weeks actually. We paid 90 cents for face masks, surgical 3-ply masks that apparently are certified from China. If we trust that, I guess. Anyway, we paid 90 cents for those that are coming in next week. So I'm just curious if anybody has a better price than 75 cents and any good sources.
Thank you, Stuart. I don't see
While
any.
we're looking for someone, if they step up about sources, Virginia, what we can do, because I know we've listed through these past weeks sources from members that they've shared with us. Maybe we can put that onto the quick links page in a singular location where people can go for a one-stop look at sources. It won't have anything to do with prices or anything else, but it'll at least give you some resources to go to if you're searching for PPE. We'll try and put it all in one place, and we'll have that together hopefully by Monday.
No more comments, Steve.
Just one more comment. This is from Eli Brown. Taryn, you had called on him earlier. He doesn't have a mic. He says his process for application was very easy on his end. His main bank, with which they do most business, reached out to us within a few hours of the act being signed. After a couple different applications, we were funded within a day or so. So that was his experience. I don't see any more new questions on the feed, but we've had a couple of people just randomly wonder via email in various communications over the past week. How are you all handling, your sales processes now?
If you want to raise your hand.
Yeah, with restrictions, how are you communicating with customers, et cetera? Volunteers? John Pettingill's got his physical hand raised, Taryn.
Okay. John?
Yeah. Well, we've got everybody staying at home as much as they can. If they're invited to go to a customer, then they put their mask on and they go in and observe the distancing and all those things. So we have still been making some physical calls on our customers, but primarily we're working through internet and phone and that kind of thing. So we're kind of standoffish, but we're not afraid to go see someone if the need is there.
Selfless plug, we have some sales webinars on how to sell virtual, how to improve your virtual selling starting up. And the first one is listed on the AICC calendar if you want to send your salespeople to some training.
Also, to further your shameless plug, Taryn, Chelsea here in the office reminded us that training hours do count toward the paycheck protection program. So a note to everybody.
Thank you. And I've got a comment from Donna Roberts. Donna, I'm unmuting you.
Thanks, Taryn. SMC salespeople have been really successful in staying in touch with our customers just by offering different ways to help. We've made signage reminding them of some of the CDC recommendations that they can post for their employees in break rooms and on bulletin boards and things like that. So just packaging some of those up, sending them with a note or dropping them off with a note, just being respectful of their visitor policies, but letting them know we're here and we're here to help.
Thank you. Anybody else? Nope. Steve, you want to go on?
I think this is another, this is just a further comment to the personal protective equipment from FOSBR. Tony Battaglia, let's call on you to, you can share your comment.
Hold on a sec. Let me get him up. Okay, Tony. I can't unmute you. Tony, you have to unmute yourself.
Okay.
There we go.
Yeah, so we use a company in Wisconsin by the name of the Elite Group. Kurt Rotherham, we actually reached out to him the other day regarding masks because it's something that FOSBR wants to be prepared for with our technicians and sales force and things like that to go enter into customers' facilities. If that requirement of wearing a mask will exist, we want to be prepared. So we had reached out to Kurt, and his message back to us was he's fully stocked. He has plenty of PPE, masks, sanitizers, gloves, things of that nature. So I put his email on there. Feel free to email him and check his pricing and availability on whatever you might be looking for. But as of late yesterday afternoon, he has plenty of supplies, I guess.
Thank you, Tony. And I'm going to go back to Mike.
Yeah, I don't know if it's not PPE necessarily, but it's along those lines. We have an associate member company who has made me aware of the fact that they've got the opportunity to, from a supplier of hand sanitizer for their company, to source truckload purchase of hand sanitizer in drums that could then direct ship as individual drums to plant locations at a competitive market price if we can get enough participation to consume 80 drums. So if anyone is interested in that, maybe we can have them, y'all can raise your hand and Taryn can do a quick count and see if there's any type of information. We'll also put some information to this effect on our website, but since we're all on and we're talking about the topic, we'll see if anybody's interested.
Just to remind everyone to raise your hand, you go into the participants box, which is located at the bottom. If you move your mouse to the bottom, it'll say it'll say participants. Click on that, open it up. You'll see your name, find your name. At the very bottom, there'll be a note that says lower hand, raise hand. That's how you raise your hand. Okay. Steve?
Up again?
Yep.
So here's another question. Again, just random conversations with people, wondering if this situation we're facing now is causing any of you, do you foresee permanent changes, for example, in your housekeeping rules, just general sanitation, things that you're implementing now during the COVID crisis, will they become a permanent part of your company policies?
You can raise your hand. We'll call on you.
I think it's time to call on somebody, Taryn.
I've got Gene Marino. He's right there. Just raised his hand.
You know, I guess we've talked, what is this, our 4th or 5th week? So much of this is unfolding. I don't think we're ready at this point to address the permanency of it, because I feel as though there is this new normal of our housekeeping, and until further notice, that's going to continue. So if I had to be a betting man, I'd say at least until such time that there's a significant fall off in cases or there's a vaccine, I think this will become somewhat of a permanent approach to what we do from a housekeeping perspective.
Thank you, Gene. Calling on Joe Palmieri.
Hey, Taryn. Good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon.
To Gene's point, I think it will change housekeeping for the plant going down the road. But the other thing I think we all got to be aware about, you have people working at home. I think they're finding out or have found out that they could do their job from there pretty effectively. So it may change how offices are staffed going forward, kind of unrelated as we come out of this, with just normal working procedures and processes.
Thank you, Joe. Anybody else, please raise your hand. Or I can call on you because, John Pettingill, unmuting you. There you go.
Right. One of the things that we're trying to keep everything as clean as possible. We've had a couple of cases where people have gone home sick. We haven't had any positive. We've had one guy test, and he was not positive. The other guy that went home was denied he didn't need a test. It wasn't a COVID thing. But in both instances, we immediately cleaned down the machine center. So we'll probably be doing more of that in the future, along with making sure that we're a little bit tighter on cleaning up the restrooms and that kind of thing. The other thing that's happened here in Grand Rapids is that because there are so many doctors' offices that are closed, there are extra nurses that are looking for work. So we've employed a group to come in and meet our employees each morning and take their temperature and give us a report back. And so they'll keep those records. We've been trying to do this ourselves, but we can't find enough thermometers. And our only thing that we've been able to do is just ask the employee if he's feeling okay. And of course, can't always get the truth. But so we've been doing that verbally and then checking their name off. But this is we think this is going to be a better approach.
Thank you, John. Anybody else?
Aaron, I'd like to add one thing kind of as a piggyback on what Joe said about folks working at home. We've seen a lot of very nice tributes to the employees that are coming into the plants and working, and they do so at some risk, and we understand why they're being recognized for what they are. But keep in mind the folks that are working at home too are working with a new and sometimes unusual set of circumstances where the kids may be underfoot and everything else. So give some thought to providing some recognition and some thanks to the employees that are working from home as well.
Good point. Steve, I think it's back at you.
What is everybody doing regarding vacations if you have a use or lose policy? In the and this writer is saying in the UK, they've extended everyone's right to carry over 4 weeks vacation for 2 years, as so many have had to cancel or issues with school closings, etc. So again, to repeat the question, what is everybody doing regarding vacations if you have a use or lose policy?
I don't have any answers. Nobody's raising their hand. I don't know. Is Jana on there? Jana, I wonder if you have an answer. No.
Maybe the person asking the question would like to expand.
John Burgess, I'm unmuting you.
Yeah, obviously a lot of people take vacations in the summertime. They're not going to be able to do that. They've cancelled trips. And my big fear is having a whole raft of vacations pile up into the year end and then lose lots and lots of productive hours. I'm looking at in a policy where we're going to allow employees to carry 50% of their entitled vacation over into next year. And as I said, with our operation in Europe, we've now been mandated to give all our employees up to 4 weeks carryover for the next 2 years because of COVID. That's a special COVID policy that the UK government's implemented. So just trying to see if anybody's thought about it or done anything about it at this point, because we're certainly thinking about it right now.
There's two people that responded in chat, both Jim Keller and what the word beat heck. And if I can call on you, or if you can raise your hand, would love to hear what you have to say to the group. John Keller, I can't find him. Oh, here we go. Hold on. It'd be really easy if you guys, Jim Keller, not John Keller. Unmute. There you go, Jim. Well, yeah, I think you have to unmute yourself.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Yeah, we have a small operation, and the person made the comment that not many people have vacation scheduled usually in this quarter of the year. It was pretty accurate from us. But we did have a number of people that, by the way, we're in Hawaii, so taking a vacation at home is not such a bad deal. But people had trips planned to the mainland, and we said, you know, this is just part of what we do. You've got more than 1 week's vacation. It's take it while you're here or lose it. So we're maintaining take it or lose it.
Thank you. Now, Steve, it's back to you.
We've had a question come in from someone who doesn't have a microphone. Are members seeing their customers change or extend their payment terms? And so when we get questions, we get responses from this, let's be careful on how we answer those. We could get this could be sensitive.
David Goach is on the phone, so we have a referee.
Okay, good.
Gene Marino raised his hand. I'm unmuting him. Or Gene, you have to unmute yourself.
Yeah, so I'm going to speak in generalities in order to keep Dave happy. We have received and fielded requests for extensions of existing terms. Yes, we are taking those on a case-by-case basis. You know, trying to use our own set of scorecard assessments as you could probably imagine, you could probably put together on how you would assess that in your own business. But doing our level best to try to limit any sort of terms extending beyond our comfort levels on what our normal business practices are.
Thank you, Gene. John Burgess?
The simple answer is yes, and if people aren't asking for it, they're taking it anyway. I think that's as simply as I can put it.
Thank you. That's it. Anybody else? James Beneroff. And you have to unmute yourself, James.
I would suggest as much as possible to encourage electronic EFTs rather than having people mail you checks, because the logistics of sticking stuff in an envelope, stamping it, and going to the PO is a lot harder now, especially if they're working from home.
Thank you. Greg J., we see that you have posted something in the chat where I'm being asked to unmute you to see if you'll offer that to the group.
Yeah, I was just really relaying at Sun, we're doing the same thing
great.
that John Burgess is looking at. We currently allow 160 hours to roll over year to year in vacation time, but we definitely have discussed increasing that for 2021.
Thank you. I don't have anybody else, Steve.
So we had a question come up just a few minutes ago. Does anybody offering any hazard pay or any kind of a bonus system to their hourly employees?
Anybody?
You know, I'm gonna, Rob Wunderlich, you replied in the chat here, so do you want to come live? And
He's raised his hand. I'm unmuting him. Rob?
Hey, everybody. Yeah, we did. We paid out a little bonus to everybody last week on Friday on the plant floor, just as a way to say thanks for coming in and taking care of the customer. You know, it went over great. We combined it with a little reminder and hand washing reminder, procedures reminder. And they were able to take it home for Easter weekend, and we'll probably do another one, maybe next week or so. I think it was great. It was a big morale booster.
Thank you. Dave Burgess, you have your hand raised. I'm going to unmute you. Go ahead. John Burgess, I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's John Burgess, not Dave.
I know.
Yeah, we decided to do an hourly bonus, hourly premium. I think it was the gentleman from Acme last week that got me thinking about it. So we've done an hourly increase for all our employees, not subject to any shift premiums or overtime premiums, just straight across the board for every hour worked. We're paying a premium. And we didn't do it as a bonus because then we'd have to figure out how much is the bonus pool and who was in and who was out. It seemed just easier to reward the people that were coming to work. So we're just paying for hours worked. And we're also paying, because we do have a few staff that come in and they'll collect papers or they'll stay for a couple of hours and then go back home and work. So we're going to pay them as well for the time that they're actually in the office.
Stephen Schmidt, I'm hoping I can call on you. I'm unmuting you because you answered to the question regarding hazard pay.
He says no microphone.
No microphone, okay. Roger Poteet, you had a comment. I'm gonna unmute you. He has no microphone either, okay. John Burgess, we already did, okay.
you know, I can read Steve's comment here, Steve Schmidt's comment, that they added $3 an hour to all employees until May 1st. Roger Poteet has a comment too on that. Is Roger on?
No, I can't pull him up. He doesn't have a mic.
Okay. Roger said increased pay for any hours worked, but not on paid time off, time to encourage working, not staying at home.
James Beneroff, I'm unmuting you.
I'm unmuted. For those that have collective bargaining agreements, it's probably a good idea to discuss the vacation and rollover policies with the reps that you've got. Because in everybody wanting to do everything so quickly, you know, I would suggest doing that so you don't have a problem down the road.
Thank you. Steve?
Regarding this bonus or hazard pay, if all of your Paycheck Protection Program dollars are not fully used within 60 days, are there any companies considering adding a bonus at the end of the 60 days? Want me to repeat that? Is anybody considering adding a bonus at the end of 60 days if you haven't used all your PPP money?
Calling Rob Wunderlich.
I was just going to say it's too soon to tell. As what I texted back to everyone, and probably too soon to tell. You only have to spend 75% of that. And there's the other 25% bucket may be used for utilities and rent. So I just think it's too soon to tell.
Thank you. Martha Haddon, I think you have to unmute yourself. I don't have the unmute feature for Martha. Jean Marino. Oh, there you go, Martha.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think it's, I mean, to us, it's a no-brainer. if you're going to get loan forgiveness by giving a bonus if you haven't used that 25% that you're allowed to use on other things, such as your rent and your utilities, you know, I would say it's a no-brainer to give it to your employees versus having a loan, you know, to pay back. So that's my opinion.
Thank you. G. Marino?
My understanding in the documents, there's no prepayment penalties. So after all this comes to a conclusion in 8 weeks, and I think the clock starts in the 8 weeks from the SBA approval, your 60-day clock. I do believe, does anybody know though, I believe that you are, is the principal not forgiven? You still would owe the 1% interest? Can anybody speak to that? I think the interest might be, the 1% interest might be on the company.
Anybody have an answer to that? Might be something we can ask Mitch Klinger, but I don't know. Steve?
Okay, here's a business-related question. We're now 6 weeks into this crisis. How is everyone's business volume holding up?
I have a raised hand from Jerry, and Jerry, you'd have to unmute yourself. I'm not sure if this is about hazardous pay or if it's about business. But Jerry, are you unmuted?
Yeah, sorry, hi, good morning or good afternoon to everybody. I just wanted to give a response about going back and paying a little extra bonus or extra hours and all that. We've done a couple of things. That every week we're giving out gift cards to all of our employees. Instead of giving additional monies, we're passing out gift cards. Last week we gave out a gift card to our local large grocery chain. And this week we gave out to our a large gas station chain. We gave out gift cards on that. And we're going to continue that all the way through. And I'll tell you, our people absolutely love it. And they really appreciate it. Our supervisors go around and thank everybody. And then I'm a little bit staying at home more often than normal. The other thing I'm going to do is we're bringing in a gal who does haircuts. We're going to next week, at the end of next week or the week after next, we're going to give haircuts to everybody in the plants. And we don't know if this is all good, bad, or indifferent, but I think everybody's starting to get shaggy, and we think it might be kind of fun to do that. So I think our frontline people deserve anything we can do to help them out. They're very appreciative of this. And then my plan is when we do get our PPP money, and if we can survive through this thing and not use up too much of that, my plan is to share a bunch of that money with them. So this is all what we're doing here.
Thank you, Jerry. And gosh, if she does roots, I would love that. Or I'm going gray soon. James Benneroff, I'm unmuting you.
For those in the greater Washington, D.C. area, you know, just as an AICC member benefit, Steve is an accomplished barber, so we can offer his services as an AICC member benefit.
He's a drummer also, for that matter.
James.
Going back to the old days where people would give food out, like Thanksgiving turkeys and such, easier than a gift card is to contract with a store or supermarket to have stuff delivered to a place at the end of the day for people to take home, as well, food instead of cash.
Thank you. Anybody else have a response or question or suggestion?
Hey, Taryn, there have been a couple comments here on Jerry's practice on the gift card, specifically as it applies to the PPP. Let's see, who's Scott Ellis or Rob Wunderlich. You had a comment, and Scott Ellis has a comment. So I don't know if you, Taryn, you want to go ahead and
sure. Hold on a sec. Rob, unmute you.
I didn't have anything. I was just talking about gift cards being trackable as easily for PP purposes than as straight pay would be for cash.
Okay, Scott Ellis.
Well, I was just saying that in most states, my understanding is that gift cards need to be treated as pay and tracked that way.
Thank you.
Well, Taryn, can you hear me?
Yes.
This is Dave Goach. That's something that I was thinking about, and I'm not providing anyone with tax advice. It's not about states. It's about federal income tax, and to the extent that you are providing your employees any compensation, which is defined as anything of value. It does not have to be cash or a cash equivalent. It could be something, a good, what have you. That is deemed to be compensation that is reportable. Now, none of you see me winking at you, but I think, it's a wonderful idea Jerry's doing. And if the company isn't subsequently writing that off as a business expense, then most likely you are making your employees very happy because they're getting a $100 gift card. And again, I'm not providing them tax advice, but I certainly know what I would do with that gift card and how I would report it. But if the company is otherwise then also writing it off, but the employees are not putting it down, that's where, depending upon how fastidious the service is going to be in the, subsequent tax cycle and audits, that could be a problem. But again, that's just some food for thought on taxes.
Thank you, David. Jean Marino, you have to unmute yourself.
Jerry, what day will the hair people be there? I want to fly out to Salt Lake and get a cut. Thanks, Jerry.
Okay, Steve.
No more. Okay. So just a couple of things. Virginia says that a link to personal protective equipment has been put on the our COVID page. And then Roger Poteet comments, he is giving tax advice. Gift cards over $50 are reportable as income.
Thank you. Mike, James Benneroff.
Yeah, speaking for everybody here, I really want to know if that's Amy Hudson's office back there, that picture.
Amy Hudson.
Yes, the Hawaii scene.
Oh.
And if so, what's the address?
We all can be in Hawaii with Zoom. You can change your background. Thank you.
And since we're into the frivolous questions, Jeff Putt asked earlier, Mike, when are you going to eat that pastry that's behind you?
It's a lemon poppy bread roll, and it's been consumed every day this week, little by little. We're disciplined.
So I have a question on how has your communication with employees changed in the last 6 weeks? What are you doing differently?
Robert Niedermeyer.
Hello. Yeah, so I've kind of started doing little kind of fireside chats with video and sending them out to the 170 email addresses we have, and they've been received pretty awesomely. They it's usually every 2 or 3 days, kind of addressing either something that's going on at the company or something that's going on in the world as far as what the latest myth is or things like that, and just sharing with them their check should be coming out and kind of just sharing information. And overwhelmingly the response has been not only from the employees but from their spouses, that they appreciate the communication that some of the bigger companies that spouses work for aren't getting that from their people, their managers. And they're all scared, so they don't know what to believe. So having that come from a source that they know, that they can trust, it's really a credibility kind of gainer for us. And we're just sharing them with stuff. And I mentioned you guys, how we're meeting every week and just kind of getting all that information. So the hard thing is going to be after this is over, what to do then, because doing them all the time, maybe it's something that just stays active. But it's really an easy way to do it, and just do a video like on your phone, and then just do it up through Vimeo or whatever and email it out, and it's a great way to do it.
Thank you, Robert. I think that's extremely important. We've been very fortunate in our company. Mike sends us updates and notes and all the time, and it's really been helpful to keep us together as a team. Steve, any other questions or comments?
What are members doing regarding screening employees for temperature prior to entering the plants? How are you going about it? This question's come up, it seems, on every one of our calls, but always good to get reminded. Anyone?
I'm not getting anything.
May-
I have a hand, James Beneroff.
Yeah, may I say something on an unrelated note, since we're on a video conference here? Wherever possible, try to use the video in dealing with employees and not just have them just be audio sessions. I think it really helps people a lot to see each other.
Yeah, you guys get with the program. Get your photos up with us so we can see all of you. It does really make a difference. Steve, anything else?
Any answers? Does anybody again have any answers on what you're doing on screening employees for temperatures prior to their entering the plant? How are you doing it?
Jean Marino, you have to unmute yourself, I think.
Our practice right now is varies from plant to plant. We've got a couple of plants, fortunately, that are in areas with very, very low incidences of positive cases. But that being said, they have contactless thermal thermometers on site at the ready. The plants that have a little bit more interaction, what we've tried to set up is more of a random hourly screening where we have one individual with the proper PPE goes around the plant, takes various contactless thermal temperatures, asks a few questions of employees. He's kind of just roaming the facility, doing what he can. So we're not at the mandatory stage yet. I think thankfully, knock on wood, with all our facilities, we've had no positive tests or close calls at this point. We hope that continues. So really, we're standing at the ready with plans if we need to make it mandatory. At this point, it is more of an ongoing random check.
Joe Palmieri?
Yeah, thanks, Karen. I think similar to Gene, but I would say that if you're not considering it, you probably would want to put something in place as to who's going to do it, the proper PPE, how you're going to cover shifts. I think as states start rolling things back, it's going to end up being mandatory for employers to screen their employees. So you may want to get ahead of it.
Thank you, Joe. Robert Niedermeyer?
Yeah, we started it like 4 weeks ago or so. We got the contactless readers, and we have managers assigned to be at the doors. We have certain doors locked from the outside, so there's only certain ways to get in. We have the gates locked and kind of notes all over the place that people who are coming in. Mailman loves us because they come in and he gets a free temperature check every day. And anybody who's making a delivery for food, we always track everybody down, and we have a log of everybody when they came in and who it was, and just temperature check them. And I actually ordered backup units because we only have one assigned for the 3 facilities. So my big worry is what happens when one breaks. So you can get them now, right? They're actually available. So I would encourage you all to kind of get on it now. Because when we got our first round, we just made it in before kind of Amazon was cleaned out, but there's supplies coming back up now. So,
thank you, Steve.
Taryn, I'm going to put Peter Haddon on the spot here because they're a smaller company with 20 plant employees. He's got a comment here.
Okay, he will have to unmute himself. Peter?
Yeah, can you hear me?
I can.
Yeah, I mean, so we've just been getting everyone together, just right off the bat, just having everyone in the same area but spaced out. And then, I mean, we're just looking at everybody. We got one person walking around with a thermal, taking thermal temperatures, contactless, and, just kind of getting everyone on the same page before the shift starts, and just going over any concerns or, any questions about the day.
Thank you. Steve?
Several comments here about on what people are doing, greeting each employee, taking temperatures, taking temps of all employees and visitors, etc. Stuart Finkel said he's not doing anything yet, but they're adding a thermal scanning device, and he's also posted a link there in the chat, so you can get it. And Stuart, I don't know if you have any comments about that.
Stuart, unmuting you.
All right, can you hear me?
I can.
All right, yeah, so one of our operations, we have the set-up box operation, so people are on top of each other, very close. So this device you don't need to go within 10 feet of anybody, and it takes like an infrared reading. It's a plus or minus a half a degree. I think it's about $4,500, and we purchased one and we're about to install it. I think it's like a 2-week lead time, and we're gonna see how it goes. And if it works out well there, then we'll implement it in all of our operations. It's kind of, I don't know if you've watching the news and you see what China's doing with their thermal scanners when people walk in buildings. It's similar to that, I think.
Thank you, Stuart.
Yeah, Greg Tucker's not on the call, but I know he's using that type of walk-through kiosk that takes the temperature in a contactless way and has for quite some time and reports good results with it.
Steve?
So this is from Finn at Independent. I think he doesn't have a mic apparently. He's asking the group, is there a consensus that as when business opens up, will we have to have tighter protocols around the business? Do we need to plan ahead? He's not really specific, but about what he means by that.
I think Jean Marino kind of answered that a little bit at the very beginning. Can you talk to that, Jean, about, I think you were talking about how it's going to be at least until there's a decision on a virus, the
vaccine.
Yeah, I mean, we're just trying at this point to manage. I think early on in these calls, and obviously everybody experienced it. Things are changing by the hour. I think they've to some level of comfort now. They're changing by the day, and so we're on a daily general managers executive management Zoom call, and I believe that a lot of the urgency of unmanageable or newly managed situations has declined. That being said, I'm somewhat reluctant for us to just simply generate a new permanent policy. We want to wait until we can, as I said, we've got the 3 phases of how the country is due to open up. That will affect our plants on a state-by-state basis, and then we'll be able to make better permanent decisions on a go-forward basis from there.
Thank you. We're close to wrapping up. Before we do, I wanted to do a shout out and thank a bunch of trainers and suppliers that have sponsored some of these webinars that we've been able to bring you for free, if not at a very reduced price. So we have Scott Ellis, Tom, and Ralph, all consultants working with us that are doing courses, and then Roger Poteet with Poteet Printing and Greg Jones of Sun Automation, who sponsored 2 of our last webinars. I just wanted to say thank you for that. Mike?
Thank you, Taryn. Thank you, everybody. Just a couple of wrap-up notes here. This video conference will be posted on our website on Monday, along with all of the notes in the chat group on the side here. So if you peruse those along with listening to the video conference, you'll kind of catch all the information again, maybe catch something that you missed. That's aiccbox.org/COVID, which, as I mentioned earlier, we update daily. We also have community pages on a number of topics, but one of those is also COVID. You would go to aiccbox.org, pull down the Connect tab, and go to Communities, and then you pick the community that you'd like, and you can ask questions. You can look at questions there and answer them just as we're doing here. And then since we never finish up without the shameless plugs, because we started out that way, Taryn mentioned the free think tank with Ralph Young, Tom Weber, and Scott Ellis, the Production Bottleneck webinar series running from April 21st to May 5th. We have a webinar, Face Masks and PPE during COVID-19, coming up on April 22nd. That's linked also to the Emerging Leaders Group, who are doing a lot of interesting things on their own, and they're opening up this one to the broader AICC membership. And then we get onto a theme, Navigating CRM Options, a webinar coming up on April 30th, Social Sales Skills webinar on May 12th, Launching Virtual Relationships webinar on May 26th, and a Virtual Sales Skills webinar on June 2nd. So as long as we are social distancing to the extent that we are, as long as we are sheltering in place to the extent that we are. We're trying to provide you, the members, tools that can at least help you with your business. Very effective tool, though. I know several of you were on it. I think it was last week or the week before. RISI had a webinar with their outlook from a paper perspective on what COVID's doing. Ken Waghorn spoke to things here in North America. We'll be posting a link to the recording of that webinar, along with all of the resource materials that went with it. We'll be posting that on Monday too. If you didn't get to that, if you were unable to, I would recommend that you take a look at it. It's one man's look into a crystal ball as to what things may look like coming out of this, and it was very compelling. With that,
we have one more raised hand.
Sorry?
We have one more raised hand. Jean Marino.
I emailed Mitch Klinger while we were on the phone, and he directed me. There's if you Google the SBA interim final rule, there's Q&A in there, and it's I think it's subsection O. Can my loan be forgiven in whole or in part? The amount of loan forgiveness can be up to the full principal amount of the loan and any accrued interest. So there you go.
Thank you, Jean.
You bet.
Thank you, Jean. Want to thank Steve for handling the questions. Want to thank Taryn for flying the aircraft again. Want to thank all of you. Want you to all stay well, stay healthy, you and your families, your businesses, and keep checking back with AICC. We'll provide you all the information that we can, and have a wonderful, wonderful weekend.